Networks fail for all kinds of reasons, and it's common for our front-end code to retry in the face of network errors. Thanks to Cypress, we can test this behavior easily. Let's start by creating a new context for to-do, creation, retries. In here, we'll make two tests. The first we'll say is it retries 3 times. So this will be the success case where on the third time the retry is successful. And then we'll say it fails after 3 unsuccessful attempts. And we'll go ahead and attach .only to our context, so this will be the only series of tests that we'll run. Let's go ahead and start off each test with a before each context, which loads up the page in a known state. So in this case, we have the 2 to-dos that we've typically been using. Now we're ready to get started writing our tests. So let's head into Cypress and see what the interaction looks like to create a new to-do. Typically, you're going to come here, we'll type third to-do, and press enter, and we see that shows up on the page. So let's replicate that. We'll click on our selector playground, and we'll see that this is called data cy new to-do. So we'll go ahead and copy that. We'll paste it in, and say that we type third to-do, and then we use the special key enter, and that will interact with the page for us. If we head back into Cypress, we can see what the post request is that's created here. We post to API/todos, so let's go ahead and mock that out. So that's going to be a cy.route. The method is going to be post. The URL is going to be API/todos. The first response is going to be a 500 status code, and we'll just reply with an empty response. And we'll say this is create to do, so we give it an alias. Then we'll scroll down here and say cy.wait for @create to do. So let's head back to Cypress. We'll see that we successfully waited on create to do, and instead of hitting our real backend, which sent us a 201, now we're sending back a 500, which means that our front end should start retrying. So let's go ahead and say that we're going to wait for this again. So we'll call this create to do 2. This will be the second version of the request. We can alternatively just wait on create to do a second time, but this makes it a little more explicit what we intend. So we'll come back to our test and see that create to do 2 hangs indefinitely, and that's because our front end doesn't yet do any retrying. So let's head back to our code and make sure we do some retries. So this will be in to-do sagas. We'll import the retry saga. The create to do function is what actually creates the to do now. So let's call this create to do attempt, and we'll make sure this retries 3 times. So let's go ahead and use a try, because after 3 unsuccessful attempts, this will raise an error. And we'll yield using the retry saga. We'll retry 3 times for 1 second each, and we'll retry using the create to do attempt method, and then we'll pass it our action. If we're successful, we will yield the action add to do success, and after 3 unsuccessful retries, we'll catch that error, and instead we'll yield a new action called add to do fail. And if we return to Cypress, we'll see that we've now waited for both our first and second create to do attempts and replied in both cases with a 500. So let's go ahead and finish our test. We'll move out the first 2 create to do attempts to the before each hook, because in both cases we're going to be using that. And then in the third create to do attempt, in one case it'll be successful, and in the second case it will be unsuccessful. So we can leave this 500 for the third create to do for the unsuccessful attempt. And in the successful attempt, we'll just go ahead and change our status code to 201. And we'll see that Cypress does in fact wait for each subsequent create to do attempt, but we still haven't made any assertions. So let's go ahead and say that in the successful case, we will get the to-do list, and the to-do list .children should have length 3. And in the unsuccessful case, let's just assume that it gets removed from the DOM, so it'll have length 2. Of course, this fails in our Cypress test because we still have all 3 children on the DOM. And the reason for that is because our reducer doesn't yet respond to the add-to-do-fail method, which we added in our saga after 3 unsuccessful attempts. So let's go ahead and just finish this interaction. We'll uncomment this so it filters out the to-do. And we will go back to our test and see that it passed. With Cypress, network retries are easy to test because for each XHR request, we can stub out a different response and then wait for them in order.